Hello and welcome back to our series on jOrgan. This is part 2. Originally I was going to hook up a external keyboard to the system, but I think we're going to take a step backwards here, bumping all the episodes back one. This is really needed. This jOrgan is geared towards a huge variety of people, and anyone who just wants to plug in a keyboard and play and enjoy the organ sounds, or all the way up to builders and integrating the system with real pipes. So what we're going to do today is simply install the software, go to the website, do a brief walk around in the website where to find reference materials such as the manual, which is written by Bill Skies, where to find NABL users forum, and get the system installed and playing with the onboard keyboard. So I want you to forget for the next like 3 episodes here that this organ exists, because we're not even going to use the organ behind me. All you need is a PC, something to produce sound, headphones or speakers, an onboard sound card is going to be fine for this, and an internet connection. That's it. No keyboards, no other hardware. So why don't we go ahead and get started. For those who already have it installed, just skip to the next video. Then we will indeed hook up this keyboard, and that is also going to be a very short video because there's really nothing to it. The reason I'm doing this is because it's so often that people go to a website and see how complex the software is just by the virtue of everything that's on the website and say, oh my goodness, I can't do this. Well, yes you can. It's going to take maybe 10 minutes tops for us to install everything. There's only really 3 things we need to install: is Java, the organ software, an organ model, and some kind of zipping software to unzip the organ model. So let's get started. Thanks. Okay, the very first thing we want to do is create a backup directory, or for now we're going to call it a repository directory, because we want to keep everything in the system in one place. And as time goes on and you start downloading either newer versions of the software or whatever, you always want to back up your jOrgan directory, because once you install a newer version, you cannot open a disposition in an older version. It's just the nature of the beast. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and create. Now the correct spelling is small j, capital O, R-G-A-N for jOrgan, and I'll call it a backup directory. jOrgan backup. Now where do we find jOrgan? Here's the home page. Now, if you start to dive in and not know where you're going, and that's another reason I'm doing this. Sometimes it takes so long just to figure out where you need to be to do what you want to do. All we want to do is install the software, so let's go to installation. And as time goes on, we'll go through the whole site. Each episode, as we introduce a new portion of jOrgan, called extensions really, we'll get into coming back here and showing where you can find the information you need. First of all, well, let's go back here for a second. Under tutorials, now this is very important. Here is the what we've adopted as the beginner's guide. It's written by Bill Skies, has contributions from everybody, and it's a good place to start if you're stuck and looking for something. Down here, anything in blue has been started and is a work in progress or finished, and anything in red are wish list items we want to address in the future. So back to installation. Now jOrgan, the J comes from Java. It runs in Java, and that's a graphic environment. Almost all Windows users have it already, but it's a good idea. It's actually a prerequisite to come here first and update your Java. So go ahead and click on this, and it takes about 2 minutes to download and install. It's seamless. I've already done it, so we won't take the time here to do this. Now, for Windows, we want to use the installer because it comes with everything available. So go ahead and click on this. And here too. Now, this is where all of the files are kept. You can go back, I think it can go back further than 3.5, but there's really no reason to. It automatically defaults to the latest version, so let's go ahead and click there. And I'm going to use the direct link. Now I want to save this to the backup directory that I made, and it automatically came up. But if it doesn't, of course, you know how to go in and find the directory you created. Now it's a good idea to also go back here. When you go to the home page, put it on your favorites. Just add it to the favorites. The install is finished. So now let's go ahead back to our backup directory and actually install the software. Now you'll see that it wants to put it in Program Files jOrgan. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually upgrading my system because I was on a beta version, so we're going to the latest version today. Now the directory already exists, so it's going to go ahead and overwrite the old system. Now I have previously backed up yesterday all of my stuff to another directory on my hard drive. Now these are what we call extensions. I'm not going to go in too much to what they are at the moment. The keyboard is necessary for what we're doing today, and Fluid Synth Sampler, which is it's a WAV file player which actually becomes embedded in jOrgan. Now even though jOrgan does not produce sound itself, it runs this program to allow it to create sounds. Creative Sound Blaster is for those of us who have other sound cards, like a PCI sound card or a USB sound device. We're using the onboard audio, so we don't need to worry about that. But it's a good idea to leave everything checked here so that as you get further involved, depending on what you want to do with jOrgan, you're not missing something later on that you need. Such as if I uncheck the recorder, you won't be able to play back any MIDI files within jOrgan. So just keep everything default checked. And we do want shortcuts. And we don't have any disposition files yet, but you can go ahead and check that. And we do want a desktop icon. Finished. And it'll come up. Now, here it is. No organ loaded or anything. It's waiting for us to either create an organ or load an organ that's already been created. And for this video, we want to go into dispositions. And the wonderful thing now, within the past 3 weeks, this website has really come together because it's now incorporated all of our major disposition builders, as well as the tutorials. Everything is now in one central location on one website. And whereas before we had to go to each individual person's website to get their dispositions, it's also made it much easier for the community to contribute tutorials and whatnot to this one central location. Now, Panos has a really nice small continual organ, and I think it's the Cronenberg. Now, I want to save this to the same place, jOrgan backup. Save. Now you'll notice that these dispositions are zipped. You need either WinZip software or WinRAR software. I prefer WinRAR. Just because I've worked with Unix a lot. By the way, we're working here on Windows XP, and we will be staying with XP throughout this entire series. So that has been backed up, and here it is. We want to extract this, but don't do an extract here. We want to go to the folder that has jOrgan installed, which is Program Files, jOrgan, and look for the dispositions folder. There's an awful lot in here. That's because this is actually a production machine. This is the machine that runs the pipe organ, actually. I don't keep my dispositions in where is recommended because I work on them so much. But for your purposes, put them in dispositions for now. Now, I did this yesterday as a test, and the Cronenberg organ is already here. But you can go ahead and click OK. It's going to ask you to overwrite everything. I'm going to say no because I made some changes to the organ, but if you just say yes. Okay, now that's all there is to that. And what has it been? 3 minutes. And we have the software installed, and now we can go ahead and open our organ. Which is in dispositions, the name of the organ, Cronenberg. And here's the instrument. Now, we don't have any keyboard hooked up to this, but jOrgan has its own internal keyboard. If it doesn't, it probably will not come up with the keyboard when you first install the software if you're doing a clean install. That can be found under View. Now in View we have a problems log. Depending on where you are, some of these shadowed will become highlighted again and you can go into them. The memory file you can look at, the recorder. The keyboard is what we're concerned with here, and it's already there. And now we need to tell jOrgan that we want to use this keyboard to play this organ. And keep in mind this is all completely separate. The organ in this window has been opened by the relay. The relay consists of all the parts needed to communicate to this organ, and this is one of the parts. So let's go ahead and now down here is where we customize or tell jOrgan the basic things we want to do. And here what we want to do is, and it already chose it, is use the jOrgan keyboard to control this instrument, the channels and the from and to, as far as what note to start on and end. They're pretty much defaulted when you use jOrgan, the keyboard. Now in this screen, which we'll get into in the 4th episode when we introduce the M-Audio keyboard that has controllers on it. If you have pistons, swell shoes, or buttons that you want to assign, this is where we would assign those, and like I said, we'll get into that in part 4. The audio buffers and the buffer size, I have this up at 512 right now because I'm using screen capture software, and that software taxes the system so much that the audio breaks up when I do demos. So we're going to leave this kind of high. The goal is actually to get this as low as possible. That way when you press a key there's no delay in the sound, which is very easy to do, and this system does not use that much system resources. It's extremely transparent. Now we should be able to pull out the board and stop, see how it highlights. It was already on when we opened this because I was testing yesterday. Here all the stops are off. Just click on one. Now come down to this keyboard. And we've got it playing. that's all there is to it. Walking around in here a little bit more, if your sound is breaking up or you don't like the reverb, let's go into, this is construct mode. Press on this. Now the sound is gone, and we can actually go in and start customizing further. As we go into adding pipes or adding controllers, which we'll do later, we'll get into what each one of these is. Now every single thing in here is called an element, and every element references something, if nothing else, at least the main console. This particular element is the fluid synth element, which is the sound file that contains all of the wave files for the instrument. And this is where we go ahead and alter our delay settings, our reverb settings. If we don't want any reverb here at all, we uncheck this. And we come with a very dry sound. We can go back in and you cannot hurt anything by coming in here and changing these settings. And it's always, like I said, we had put this organ in our jOrgan backup folder, because if you go in here at any time and change anything, you can always go back to the original later. So let's, really don't want that much. Put that there. I'll make this 100, I guess. And there we have our reverb. While we're in here, we might as well bring up the recorder. It would be nice to hear something play. Now I've canceled all my stops, and here's a little bit about the recorder. We'll unarm these tracks. This first track here refers to the console itself, the whole organ. In this case, it is the entire organ. In some other cases, it goes, there are multiple screens and there'll be multiple tracks. This track records combination changes and swell shoe movements, crescendo, anything like that. And this is the track for this particular manual, of which, being a continuo, it only has one. So there are only 2 tracks here. Now, if we play, you see the Borden came out by itself and the Larigo. One of the nicest features about this recorder, it's the first in its industry, in the industry that I know of, that actually allows you to go in and edit. So let's say you had a 2 or 3 manual organ and the pedal line got screwed up somehow. You can actually go in and disarm the recording button on the tracks and leave the pedal track armed and go and redo the pedal line, and without having to do the entire piece all over again. Same is true with the console. If a piston is hit late or the stops activate just a hair too late, you can go in and actually re-register the piece without having to re-record the entire piece. But we'll get into more of that. That's for another segment. So basically, that's it. It took us about 5 or 6 minutes to install everything we needed aside from Java. The main points are: create a backup directory first, and not because things get corrupted, but because it's just good practice. Anytime you make a change to a system or add software or anything, always create a backup of your work. Java, and make sure you install Java first, and then take time, go through the website, browse through the beginner's guide, and don't get overwhelmed, because Again, this software is so very powerful and touches so many people in different ways. Those who simply want to play it, to those who want to know, well, I've got it working with the pipes and everything, but how do I get manual transfer to work? And what are the MIDI messages involved? To get it to this level, we really didn't need to know anything about MIDI, and the next segment, you're not going to need to know anything either. So let's go ahead and wrap it up here and move on to part 3, connecting the keyboard. Thank you. Have a great day.